Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Natalie from Mommy Insight. So glad that you could join me today. So for today's video, I'm going to be sharing with you a productive evening. I hope that you get some motivation out of this, and if you are new here, I hope that you stick around and subscribe to my channel. To get started, we're just going to be doing some little Halloween decorating here on the kitchen window, but I'm going to be putting this little decorating craft together that I found at the Target dollar spot. So I'm just punching some holes in those little pumpkins so that I can put some twine in there. That way I can be able to hang it up. But meanwhile, my son is just painting a little canvas that I found at Dollar Tree for $1. So that was really nice. I love this little craft so much because I could tell that he was so happy painting it, and at the same time it's something that I hope to keep for a very long time, and something that, you know, I could show him when he's older, and it's a nice memory to have, that something that we could look back at.
Amarillo.
So this Hocus Pocus sign that I'm hanging up is also a find from the dollar spot at Target. And meanwhile I'm finishing up the window here, my son was just painting some of the pumpkins that I decided not to put into that little craft. So that's what he's doing meanwhile, and he was having so much fun with that.
Yeah. Okay, let's bye. 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 Bye.
So by this point my son was already in bed, so I had the evening to myself so that I could get started with cooking and all of the cleanup afterwards. But for today's video I'm going to be sharing with you 2 Pinterest recipes that I found. It was my first time trying out both of these recipes, so I did have a small mess up, but it was okay because in the end both of these were still very delicious. And I'm going to be linking both of these recipes down in my description box in case you want to give them a try. I do recommend them because they were very delicious, like I said, and super easy to make. So to get started, I'm going to be preparing the chicken for the first recipe, which is a 1-pan autumn chicken dinner recipe. And this is a fall dinner recipe, but even though I live in Texas and the weather is so not like fall right now, I am so up to anything that will make me feel more like fall. I already have my home decor and I just want to be eating foods that remind me and make me feel like it's fall here, because I really do want it to be fall already. But anyways, I'm gonna be starting off with this recipe, and to prepare this chicken, all I'm gonna be adding is olive oil, red wine vinegar, some fresh herbs and garlic into a gallon-sized resealable bag. And I'm gonna be then adding the chicken and seasoning it with some salt and pepper, and then I'm just gonna make sure that I rub it very good into the chicken, and I'm gonna set that to the side. And meanwhile, I'm gonna start off with the second recipe that I'm gonna be cooking, which is also a one pan dinner recipe, but this one has a sausage instead of the chicken, and it does have some similar veggies to this to the chicken recipe, but it did have a very different flavor because for the second one I decided to cook some brown rice to have with that dish. So it did taste very different, even though it did have similar veggies in both of them. I'm going to be setting this chicken to the side and just letting it marinate with those flavors for a little bit. And meanwhile, I'm going to be preparing all of the veggies and cutting up veggies and sausage for the second recipe that I'm going to be making. So I'm going to be explaining a little bit of everything that I'm using for both of these recipes, but if you want more details and exact measurements and things like that, definitely check out the links down in my description box so that you can cook these exactly like how the recipe says. But to be honest with you guys, I never really follow recipes exactly how they say, maybe a little bit on my first tries because I want to make sure that I get it right. Especially with like seasonings, I don't really follow those exactly. I just kind of put as much seasoning as I think I know it will need or to my liking, if that makes sense. But if I am going to be doing something like baking, then I do like to be exact on those. I like to follow the recipes for that because baking is a little bit more precise, but not with cooking. With this is just seasonings. Don't be scared of your seasonings, you guys. You know how much salt, pepper, things like that you like in your dishes, so just follow your instincts with that. I mean, unless you really need measurements, you know, there's nothing wrong with that at all. But like I said, I'm gonna be having both of these recipes linked down in the description box, so check those out if you need to. I already washed all of my veggies, which this recipe calls for, I think it was like 1 pound of sweet potatoes and 1 pound of Brussels sprouts, 2 medium apples, and I decided to use the yellow golden apples, which those did have a little bit more of a sweet flavor. But here I'm just peeling my Brussels sprouts, and then I'm going to be cutting those. And if you can see there to the right, I have the sheet pan there, so as I'm cutting, I'm just adding all of my ingredients onto that pan, and then at the very end I'm just going to put a little bit of olive oil over that, and then just seasoning with the seasonings that it asked for, which I believe it was like sage, thyme, and rosemary, salt, and pepper. So as you can see, super easy and fast to prepare this dish. You made this mess and left me with the pieces. Now I wanna burn all the bridges between us. I can't focus, I can't forget. I've been thinking too much So the dish that I just put in the oven, I am going to be taking it out after 15 minutes of being in there, just so that I can mix everything up together and all the flavors can come together as one and be good to go. But meanwhile, I'm going to get started with my brown rice. And I did have somebody comment on one of my videos before that they had never seen anyone make rice like the way that I do. I don't know if this is because it's a gluten organic rice, but it does say on the back to rinse your rice before you wash it. I know that when I make Mexican rice, I never do wash it. I just fry it up at first. But for this one, like I said, I'm just following the instructions that it says on the bag. And it does say that you can cook it with either water or any kind of broth that you would like. And I'm using vegetable broth for this. And I don't add any type of seasonings to it because the vegetable broth already has so much flavor to it. And I do add a little bit of butter just so that the rice doesn't stick to the pan. So I'm just gonna simmer that for 40 minutes. The 15 minutes had already passed, so I'm just taking out that pan from the oven and just mixing everything together, and then I'm gonna be putting it back into the oven for another 15 minutes.
Silent nights recalling you, a souvenir of what it could be. Pieces of my mind are yours. I forgot the parts I'm missing. I pretend that we are okay, like nothing's ever broken. And I pretend that we are dancing, like the nights are never ending.
And so now moving on to the second dish for the autumn one pan chicken dish, I'm going to be cutting up all of the vegetables. And like I said, this one did have similar vegetables like to the first dish that I prepared, the one with the sausage. But this one does have the Brussels sprouts, sweet potato, apples, but this time I'm going to be using red apples for this dish, shallots, and bacon. Now the parts where I messed up were for this dish, I forgot to add the shallots until the very last 15 minutes of this recipe cooking in the oven. And then the biggest mess up with this dish was not adding the bacon. I completely forgot, and I didn't realize this until the next day in the morning when I opened the fridge to, get all of my stuff to make breakfast. That's when I saw the bacon, you guys, and I was so sad. I could not believe I had forgotten to add the bacon to this dish. And like I said, this was still very delicious without the bacon, so I can just imagine with the bacon how delicious this would be. So definitely I'm gonna be trying this dish again, and this time I'll make sure I won't forget the bacon. Let me know down in the comments if this has ever happened to you, where you're trying out a new recipe and then at the very end, once you're completely done, you realize that you have forgotten an ingredient. Luckily this time it wasn't such a bad thing where it made a huge difference in the dish. At least I hope so. But let me know in the comments if this has ever happened to you. This is when I decided that I was going to empty out the dish that I had here from the sausage, just so that I could transfer all of my veggies from the smaller sheet pan that I had. I just felt like this was just too crowded and there wasn't enough space, especially to put the chicken on top of this. But since I was already here transferring foods over to containers and stuff, I decided to fix up my husband's lunch for the next day for when he goes to work. But that's what I was doing there. And once I'm done with that, I'm going to be transferring all of the vegetables from the chicken dish pan to the other sheet pan that I have, just because that one is bigger, and this just made me see how easy I can have vegetables and my meat and everything, in a pan to go super fast and easy to make. I'm definitely going to be searching up more recipes on Pinterest that are one sheet pan recipes, because I loved how fast and easy both of these recipes were.
The seasons come and go like thoughts of you. Like a wave returns to the sea, into the blue. They change but in a cycle that I can't lose. Each painful but delightful to live through. You came into my life dressed like another season. Not for them, just a time, dressed like another season. You came into my life dressed like another season. Not for them, just a time, dressed like another season.
So this is a little after putting that second dish into the oven. I had taken a little break just to try out that first dish with the sausage, veggies, and brown rice with my husband, because he had just gotten home from work. But there was 15 minutes remaining on that second dish to come out, and then I was about to start my cleanup, and then this is when I realized I had forgotten the shallots for this dish. So this is when I started cutting them up, and I just put a little bit of olive oil over them and salt and pepper, and then I just opened up the oven and added that onto the second dish, and it was good to go. Now that I added that, now I can continue with my cleanup, but that's what I'm going to be doing now, just putting everything away and then getting to those dishes in the sink and just, cleaning the counters, sweeping and mopping here in the kitchen.
Not for long, just a time, just like another season. You came into my life just like another season. Not for long, just a time, just like another season. So fast, all tied up like a captive. I'm on to you. Used to paint my mind like standing on rainbows, playing it cool. I haven't felt this in ages, and I know patience. So won't you please stay a bit longer? You're making me stronger, making me stronger. Stay a bit longer. started to fall, and where were you? How could I know you were falling too? Grabbing the wind, cutting my skin, but it's hard because I'm falling. Tell me why I'm falling. Oh, life's calling, but it's hard because I'm falling, 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 falling.
So for days like this where the floors are not too dirty in the kitchen, I like to bring back out my wet Swiffer mop. I do have an old cedar mop that I love using, and I will use that in the kitchen if I feel like it's truly necessary, like it needs a better cleanup and disinfect and stuff like that. But I do find myself using the old cedar mop more for days that I have an all day house cleaning to do. But for nights like this, like I said, for a quick and easy cleanup, I'm just using my Swiffer wet mop. So that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you so much for joining me and watching all the way to the end. If you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you're new here. Please comment down below what was your favorite part about this video. Share it with your friends and family, and give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. And I'll see you next time with a new video. Bye.